Hi, there's Kevin with the Rogue Market here with a video that was suggested, encouraged by a patron of mine to give my analysis on standard booster boxes and which set would be the best to invest in. There's also been a lot of discussion over at the Alpha Investments channel about the supposed crash of Theros, and I have a lot more insight to add to that than I think was expressed in that video. There are multiple factors that are causing this pretty low value, one of the worst values out of a set. We're what, only a couple weeks old of the Theros set, and it's already the lowest standard booster box price at the moment, which is a bad sign for a brand new set. Typically, brand new sets can hold about $110 TC mid price, $120 TC mid price, no problem, if you add up the entire expected value of opening up a booster box. But this one's already way low, as you can see here on Dawn Glare. It is down to about $61.86 for market price. So you have to even take in fees into consideration on that. You're losing another 10 to 15%. On top of that, you're looking at really having a low $55 to $60 value of Theros Beyond Death booster boxes if you're trying to crack them and actually make your money back. And it's been proposed a couple of different theories of why that is happening. And then we'll actually discuss other booster boxes in standard, and I'll give you my insight on where I think that they'll end up long term, if they're good investments, if you were to invest in a particular set, which one, and we'll do a full deep dive into these standard sets. So Theros, let's talk about Theros. There's a little more going on than what Alpha Investments Rudy was suggesting. Yes, the Theros Collector's Edition booster boxes are having a huge impact on the value of Theros Beyond Death because of the increased mythic value or mythic pulls you'll get in the Collector's Edition. Also with the foil lands that you can get in the Collector's Edition, it's basically made those worth a lot less than they probably would have been if they were not contained in the Collector's Editions. So that is taking away some value that would be on this Theros Beyond Death. However, mythics don't tend to be the biggest indicator of a box's value. Typically, the boxes that have the best value in them contain rares, especially land cycles, to hold the value of the set. So if you look at Khans of Tarkir, that was Khans of Tarkir had all the value in fetch lands in a rare slot. If you look at Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance, same thing. The rares are holding the value. War of the Spark, it also is the rares that are holding the value. So I think Theros Beyond Death is definitely suffering from really not having a rare other than the Dryad that is over $10, and that, especially for a brand new set, is going to kill the price of it. It's going to make it so people don't want to open boxes, and it's really is hampering Theros Beyond Death. There also has been a rumor of increased supply of the Theros Collector's Edition. Wizards of the Coast is trying to find the fine line of where these things will sell. Throne of Eldraine had a massive reception for the Collector's Edition boxes. They were very hard to come by. I believe they're going for in the 300s on eBay when they were first released. They're all the way down to about $225 on eBay, mainly because the Throne of Eldraine Collector's Edition did not do well overseas and did not do well in foreign markets. They were English printed, and now a lot of those supplies are coming back in the United States. And with a bunch of cards banned out of Throne of Eldraine, it is not longer looking like the Collector's Edition box that people wanted to buy. Theros, though, really just doesn't have a lot of things going for it in the booster box, mainly because the Collector's Edition actually do seem like the best buy based upon the fact they have an increased mythic rate, and they have an increased rate of, well, they just contain foil lands per set. So yes, that is what has been driving the main purchase over to the Collector's Edition of the Theros rather than booster boxes, which has just killed the price of Theros. There's one other factor, though, that I have to mention, which is the cards that are exclusive to the theme decks. That is another thing that is hampering the Theros Beyond Death sales, because theme decks have been a joke when they've been released in other sets. Usually theme decks were just really geared towards brand new players. That it's like, hey, you can get all of one color in this particular booster pack. So instead of buying 2 booster packs of the set, how about you just buy this theme deck and get all black cards? And it really appealed to the nubs, and that's how they sold. But everyone that knew better would rather realize that the expected value is much better out of 2 booster packs than a theme deck where the theme booster pack just had additional uncommons and commons. You had a slightly higher chance of getting an additional rare, and I believe that has been bumped up in Theros Beyond Death. So now you have a higher chance of getting 2 rares or a mythic and a rare in the theme decks, which is making them sell more than they usually do. So this is another factor that is really crushing Theros Beyond Death. Last but not least, it definitely is the problem of Theros Beyond Death's contents. There just isn't a lot of stuff to get excited about. The spoiler season was pretty lackluster. Of course, there was Heliod, but after Heliod, there wasn't a lot of cards. Euro Titan of Nature's Wrath does seem like the real deal, but it's also starting to put up lackluster numbers now in Standard and in formats that we thought that it was going to see a lot of play in. So I predicted this card to be a $40 mythic, thinking that Theros might not be the most open set. But things like these Collector's Edition flooding the market have even caused cards like Euro Titan of Nature's Wrath to get completely crushed. You have cards like Thassa that ended up not hitting the decks people thought it was. Ashiok seeing play is as most of a 2 of in most of the decks. Kroxa really not finding a home at the moment. And Nyx Bloom Ancient just being more of the same that has been printed for EDH. There's tons of ways to ramp. This is just more of the same and hasn't really got people as excited as we thought it would be. So that leaves us with the Dryad of Elysian Grove that also is starting to go down in value just because there's just more supply out there than can actually stretch the demand or less demand than there is supply. And of course, prices across the board are coming down. Now, let's talk about that for a second. I think we are in more dire straits than Wizard of the Coast is leading to believe. I did a poll. I've talked around to other game stores. Excuse me, I gotta get a drink here, got a sore throat. But done a lot of research on Theros. Theros had a pretty good pre-release showing on average per store. But that doesn't show the biggest picture of what's going on in Magic the Gathering. There have been a number of closures. 2019 Christmas season was an absolute killer for game stores. Not only was it Magic the Gathering that changed its tone of how to get the product to the consumer, but board games are hurting local game stores as well, with their preferred outlet being Kickstarter, and their preferred outlet just being selling directly to consumer. We're in a day and age where the game store is not really that pivotal to the experience of both tabletop games and board games. So it caused a lot of stores to completely get crushed in the late 2019s. Well, there hasn't been a pre-release since then. So I think that there was a huge congregation of, or I guess just, I can't think of the word I'm looking for here, but with a bunch of stores closing, that just meant that the stores that did survive got all that new influx of players. So overall, the community lost, but particular stores might have gained, which means the overall demand, though, for cards is less than it has been with other sets, and it just hasn't had the demand that these other sets had for people accumulating the new cards. So all this has really crushed Theros. Now, that said, this might lead an opportunity for Theros to actually be worth something long term if it does not get opened. Let's just say that people are going to completely avoid this set, and it ends up being similar to a core set. This set could rebound. Now, I'm not going to make any claims right now or predictions. We need to wait and see if that happens, because there are plenty of cards that are seeing long-term play. This doesn't have a good land cycle, so it doesn't have that going for it. But it does have good cards like the Ox and Elspeth that are putting up better numbers than its price is suggesting. Both of these mythics are seeing pretty reasonable amount of play in the various formats. There are also cards like Shadow Spirit and Nyx Lotus that are popular in casual decks and in Commander. And of course, we still have the cards like the Nyx Bloom Ancient. This should be an evergreen card from now on in Commander. So I am reasonably okay with Theros, but we need to watch the pressure, see if boxes continue to be open, see if Collector's Edition continues to flood the market. Before that, I would give a nod to Theros. I think this is going to be one of the worst sets we've had in a long time. Very similar to the Ixalan sets. People forget those were really terrible value, and they've all rebounded decently. So if we come over and actually look at Dawnglare, you can see that the Ixalan sets are starting to recover. They're starting to go back up, and mainly because of Pioneer, and mainly because they have a lot more cards that do see play in other formats like EDH and Modern than people first gave Ixalan credit for. Same thing with Amonkhet. That was really dire straits with Amonkhet. These are also sets that are recovering okay. So I put that Theros, if it gets opened about the similar to Amonkhet Ixalan, that's what it's got going for it. What it doesn't have going for it is just the collector's editions, the theme boosters, all the other stuff that are really driving the price down of the cards. All right, so let's go ahead and start judging the other sets and see which box that I would consider investing in long term. So first up, let's start backwards. Let's start with Guilds of Ravnica. Guilds of Ravnica has been my favorite for a long time because the land cycle is super good in Guilds of Ravnica. If you come over to Guilds of Ravnica, it has a lot of rares that are above that $5 mark, which is a great sign for it. You have cards like Chromatic Lantern that will continue to go up until it's reprinted. You have a very popular land cycle with Water Grave, Sacred Foundry, and Steam Vents. Steam Vents is typically the color combination that has the best chance long term for having the most value. We see that with like the Shivan Reef. We also see that with the Checkland. It's the one right now. Breeding Pool is worth the most because it's had such a phenomenal showing in Standard. But I'm thinking that Steam Vents will eventually be worth the most. So I'd give the nudge with Water Grave and Steam Vents, and also the Black Green land is also in this one. Where's it? And Temple Garden. I give the nudge to the land cycle to Guilds of Ravnica over Ravnica Legions for long term. The rares are also very interesting with cards like Knight of Autumn, Legion Warboss, Pelt Collector. All of them see a ton of play in the Moderns and Pioneers. You have the Mythics that are pretty good. If they're not popular in competitive, they're popular in casual. You have Assassin's Trophy that keeps, flirting with between $10 to $20. That is a staple card all the way back into Legacy now. And you have Mythics like Arclight Phoenix that are on the verge of recovering anytime with any new cards that help fill up the graveyard. So I am really, really bullish on the Ravnica or Guilds of Ravnica. If you go around in this slot between the $1 to the $3 card, you're going to see other cards that I think are going to age very well. Cards like Risk Factor, Midnight Reaper, Beast Whisperer. We have even cards like Trostani. These are very, very heavily played in casual and in constructed Experimental Frenzy. Great cards for long-term value. Right now, they don't have the value because Guilds of Ravnica was a first set. First sets typically are ones that I like to avoid. But Ravnica Allegiance was actually a very well-received set and had a lot of value for a long time, that I would say that Ravnica Allegiance probably has as much supply out there as Guilds of Ravnica. So if we come back over to Dawnglare, we see that they are pretty much the exact same price. Ravnica Allegiance, however, has a lot more value that is tied to Standard. So if we come over here with their big name cards, Hydroid Krasis, Breeding Pool, these will probably get some price adjustments. Blood Crypt, which is traditionally the least expensive dual land. These are really popular right now in Standard. As soon as Standard rotates, we can see a bunch of these ones start to drop value. The card that it has going for it the most is Smothering Tithe, which did get a reprint in the Brawl decks, so it's going to keep the price of this thing down. When we get down to the same, comparing it to Guilds of Ravnica, this is where Ravnica Allegiance starts to lag behind. They don't have the amount of $1 to $3 cards that I think are going to last long term that Guilds of Ravnica does. So if I were to make the comparison between the two, I give the nod to Guilds of Ravnica. Let's take a look at War of the Spark. I love War of the Spark. The problem is, everyone loved War of the Spark. The problem is, it had a Teferi that was worth over $20 for a long time that people needed for every format. So this set is probably the second most set opened of all time. I think they say it's Dominaria, then War of the Spark, then Khans of Tarkir, in that order, and then Battle for Zendikar after that. So, with War of the Spark having so much supply out there, it's going to be hard for these cards to recover. However, this set is just packed full of cards that I think are going to have casual appeal for long term and competitive appeal. It did get hurt with cards like Karn the Great Creator not being as powerful now in Modern, but this card gets better and better with more cards printed. With artifacts you can grab out of your sideboard, really, really potent card in Legacy and Modern. There's also some other really, really good staples that I think are going to age well, like Nizu Shakes the World. Niv Mizzet Reborn is a very popular Pioneer and Modern deck. We have Nicol Bolas, which is a very powerful card in Pioneer, and who knows, could see Standard again. and Liliana's Dreadhorde General, which is a very favorite card in Commander. So if you come down to this slot, though, there are a lot of cards that are really good in these rare slots between the $1 and $3 cards. They have the ability to go up long term, and there's also a lot of uncommons like Ashiok and Narset that are going to see play for years to come in many formats. So I do like War the Spark, but what War the Spark has not going for it is how much it was opened. Leads us to Core Set 2020, which is currently the set that has the highest estimated value of $95 market price. This set was ignored, and one of the reasons was it came out the gates pretty lackluster. But Core 2020 is chock full of really good cards in both EDH and in cards like Modern and Pioneer. And what I like most about the Core 2020 is a lot of these cards get better with more cards printed. So you come over to Core 2020, I love cards like Sorin and Paris Bloodlord. If we get another set with vampires, this card gets exponentially better in Pioneer. We're really missing like that big payoff, like a 6-drop. 6-drop would be the sweet spot because it's something that could actually be cast in a vampire mid-range deck and can be cheated in with Sorin's and Paris Bloodlord's ability. And it really gets better with more 4 and 5 drops, even 3 drops. The curve gets exceptionally good with Sorin and Paris Bloodlord. Leyline of the Void is just going to continue to go up. It is an evergreen card in Modern and in Pioneer. And we have cards like Lotus Field. They're seeing a ton of play in Pioneer. Yarok the Desecrated, which is one of the most popular Commander decks of all time. And the Cavaliers, which I think are going to even age well, even after they rotate. There still is Fires of Invention decks that are competitive in Pioneer. And a Giant Strength of Pride is another one of those cards that just gets better as time goes on. So this is what Core 2020 has going for it. It's got a lot of cards in this $2 to $5 range. However, where I think this card kind of lags behind Guilds of Ravnica is the land cycle. It doesn't have a land cycle that is tried, tested, and true, proven. It has a lot of cards that are going to lose value once they rotate out of standard. And it's got a lot of cards that are just overvalued based upon how much the set hasn't been opened. And so if you take that into account, I think that post-rotation, that Core 2020 is not going to age well as Guilds of Ravnica. Let's move on to the wild card here, which is Throne. Throne is still currently selling for a decent Dawnglare price. So if we look at the Dawnglare value of Throne of Eldraine, it's actually sitting at $83.57, which if you can get boxes at $80, or right now you can get them from me at $77, you can actually make your money back after fees. You'll break even here, but it's doable. The thing that Throne of Eldraine doesn't have going for it is the amount of banned cards in Throne of Eldraine. We have Oko that was banned. We have Once Upon a Time that was banned. Once Upon a Time is going to get banned in Modern. Do not hold on to it. It's banned in Modern. It's oppressive in Modern. It's gone. It's breaking things like Tron and Titan, and it will be gone sooner than later. So that leaves us with a lot of cards that are going to get crushed post-rotation. Cards like Questing Beast and the Grey Henge do see play outside of post-rotation, but their value is really tied to standard at the moment. What it does have going for it is Fabled Passage and Brazen Borrower and Murderous Rider, as well as the Embercleave and the Giant, the other Giant that does 2 damage, the Shock Giant. Can't think of it at the moment. It's also got really good cards like the Castles. The Castle cycle is actually a pretty decent land cycle because all of these cards see a lot of play in their EDH Modern Pioneer decks. Has pretty busted cards like Tobrin and Stonecoil Serpent that see play in multiple decks, and a Yara, the First of Locktwain, that sees a ton of play in Commander, and reasonably popular commanders or Planeswalkers in Garruk. I really like Throne of Eldraine long term, but it could start to suffer from Theros. The collector's editions are starting to make their way into the US markets that weren't sold overseas. Distributors are already reaching out to me, wanting me to buy them. These were things that were very tough to get, and we've seen the price go from $300 all the way down to $225, and who knows where they're going to collapse at. So this is the real wild card, is Throne of Eldraine. Throne of Eldraine, I would pass on at the moment. I am buying them at $77. I think that's a good value for Throne of Eldraine because it cost me about $85 for Guilds of Ravnica. So right there, I can already save $8 in comparison. But the set that I would choose, the set that I think is going to age the most out of standard, currently I'd give the nudge to Guilds of Ravnica, then to Core Set 2020, then probably Ravnica Allegiance / Throne of Eldraine, And then War of the Spark actually isn't that bad. We're in an age where I like the standard sets minus Theros. I think they're all pretty good. If we compare them to Ixalans and Amonkhet's, this has been a good cycle long term. There's been a power level increase in these sets. There have been some really good cards that I think are going to be sleeper cards in Pioneer, and long term I think they're going to age quite well. So there you have it. There's my analysis of the standard sets. Looking forward to your comments in the comment section below. Apologize for the raspy voice. Still want to get videos out. We're going to do some other videos like the Rogue Roundup later this week when I get my voice back, and I'll get back in the swing of things. Hope you enjoyed this video. It was sponsored by our patrons, so if you are interested in a video tailored to your needs, that's one of the ways to do it, is come over, sign up for Patreon. You can talk to me, have direct access with me on Discord, and you also get awesome deals like $77 Throne of Eldraine boxes and like $147 Modern Horizon boxes. And what is Commander going for right now? Like $84 for a set of Commander? Screaming deals that we can get you right now at the low price of just becoming a Patreon member. Check it out, patreon.com/roguedeckbuilder. Start saving money on your Magic Gathering products. Thanks for watching.